Hello, and welcome to another Sunday service of Drift and Drop with a nice little bit of Japanese jazz to begin, but I haven't figured out how to blend it into the scenes. But here we go, once again. And to begin, this week we have La Froig. I think that's how you pronounce it. A very potent, powerful, Scottish single malt from LA, quarter cask, very good. Oh, peaty. A little bit of water, of course. I used to be a Philistine and put ice in my whiskey, in my single malt. But now I just put a bit of water in, and the chemicals that are hydrophobic release the aroma. Oh, that's potent. Peaty whiskies. I didn't really know what they were until recently, and just like this really potent, powerful taste, almost medicinal. A bit like TCP. If you remember what TCP was. Yeah, but it's a bit of an acquired taste, but I like it. It tastes good. So now, I don't know if I've got anyone with me at the moment. Oh, here we go. Trevor Labonte. How you doing? Good to hear from you. If it's not Scottish, it's crap. I don't drink... Oh, chin chin. I thought you said gin. I don't drink gin. It's only Scotch. I like a bit of American bourbon, some American rye. But yeah, I've got a taste for Scotch at the moment, but also some of the Japanese whiskies are pretty awesome. So yeah, I thought I'd do another live stream because they're fun. And I'm kind of getting a little bit of an idea of the vibe that I want. I want it to be slow and anti kind of like high speed, high editing, high fast, just nice and chilled, like a lounge. I've been getting into Kissa. Kissa is Japanese listening bars. And they have this amazing tradition in Japan, which kind of came about after the Second World War, in which they have these bars called listening bars, listening lounge, where they play jazz or classical music. They've developed a little bit now, but they're just really chilled out, and people go in to listen, to drink whiskey, and they play it through like audiophile level hi-fis. Not just, a sound system that's installed into a bar. These guys who run the bar have their record collection, an enormous amount of vinyl in the bar. They're the barman, the DJ, and they also do some snacks. And it becomes like an offering that they make to the customers who come in and enjoy the tunes, enjoy the vibe, and it sounds really cool. And that's kind of what I want the stream to be, like a Japanese listening bar, but we deal with funky topics and subjects as we go. So, who else is there? Mr. Boyle. So, how's the fasting and the fitness going? Well, not too good. Not too bad. Could always be better, of course. How about you, Mr. Boyle or Mr. Blobby? I couldn't see that. Yeah, so it's kind of like this idea of going more analog when you can. Because the rate of AI now, it's just going to transform everything we understand about how we interact with the culture and each other and ourselves. It's like Google on steroids, isn't it, you know? But I noticed this week there's a YouTube music guy called Rick Beato. Massive channel, huge channel. And he was showing this new AI app. I forget the name of it. It'll come to me. I might have downloaded it. Let me have a look if it's on my phone. And basically you put in to this app the type of song that you want to produce, type of lyrics, type of music, the style, the orchestration, the instruments, and it produces you, you know, a pretty good result. Obviously, it's made by a robot, but now what's happening is the record companies are seeing where it's going. So they're getting artists to license their sound. So if you want to make a Red Hot Chili Peppers AI tune, you're allowed to use the back catalogue for the AI to create a tune that's not them. It's, you know, something created by the robot, but you're then allowed to use it with certain licensing conditions. So I don't know where that's heading. Suno, there we go. Suno, thanks, Trevor. Thanks for the update. So where does that go, though? I mean, is that the end of music? Is that the end? Well, not music. Is that the end of music made by humans? You know, we were promised all of this technology would get rid of the chores and the labor. You know, what's happening is that we're still doing the chores and the labor and the robots doing the art. It's not how it was sold. And I don't like it. However, it's undeniable the usefulness of using ChatGPT and Grok. I mean, you know, it's daily usage now. It just kind of makes my work better than what I do, but I can understand where it's going. So in some ways, the way I think we can push back against that and remain human, keep our humanity, is through our love of the analog or live. Because if anybody can create music using Suno, then the value of recorded music dramatically diminishes because anybody can do it. It's no longer the preserve of an elite. And when I say an elite, I don't mean that as the modern connotation of like an elite who is evil, like elite musicians who spend their lives dedicated to learning music theory, learning instruments across the board. Now it's, you know, all being taken over by a robot. So I think live performances will start to have much, much more value because you can see it with your own eyes. I mean, maybe we can't even trust our own eyes soon, but you'll be able to see that it's humans producing music, and that's where we really get our enjoyment from, isn't it? It's watching other people produce these feats of brilliance, emotional brilliance. And that's where we get our enjoyment from. So maybe that's the pushback, is that more value will be added to craft, artisanal craftsmen. And that's why I'm going to vinyl. I bought a a vinyl record player for the first time in 30 years, maybe more, 35 years. And got the record player over there. Got myself like a beginning audio file set up. Only basic stuff, but got the deck, got the amp, got the speakers, and started buying vinyl again. And I absolutely love it. I love the whole ritual of searching for the record, going to shops to find, obscure records that you might be interested in, looking for cheaper deals, how to get cheaper vinyl, because vinyl's not cheap. And then you buy the vinyl, you hold it as an object, and what a beautiful object it is. Even the cover, the cover with the artwork on the outside, the lyrics on the inside, a little bit of a story on the back. There's a whole narrative journey just in that part alone. And then it's like, okay, well, how do I handle a record? So then you get into this whole like new skill of handling the vinyl, then placing it onto the turntable, getting the needle just right. And, if you've got a little bit heavy-handed like me, at the beginning I was making a bit of a pig's ear of it. And then this tactile action of lowering the needle to the record. And then the music comes. But also, it's then the actual experience of listening to the record. Because music, because it's lost its value, and also because every tune ever made is available via streaming, it's just become background noise. Nobody really listens anymore. Nobody really listens to the music. And especially in the MP3 format, which has data missing for the ear. In order for MP3s to be created, there has to be compressed, and therefore lots of information about the music is removed, and they rely upon your brain to fill the gaps, because it's pretty smart. But the audio experience is limited when it's MP3. So with the analog experience through the vinyl, you're getting the full sensory experience of what it sounded like when it was made by the musicians. Sounds like, silly details, but I think it's important. I think it's important. And then with the album, I spoke to my friend the other day, Matt, hypnosis guy. I've done a podcast with him, very cool guy, and he's got a deck. And talking about this topic about the idea of the ritual of putting on the vinyl, and he said, "Yeah, but you've got to keep getting up to change it, haven't you?" And I said, "Yeah, that's what I love, right? I love the idea that, one, I'm listening to albums again. And an album is a narrative from front to the end. It's a story that the musicians have created that they want you to listen to. It's now people just listen to tracks, just a single tracks. But when I was growing up, it was just all about the album, the story of the album. Obviously, we did tapes and playlists and stuff, but the album experience is kind of like gone. But with the vinyl, you get up, you put it on, and you let it play the full side. And then when it comes to the end, whatever you're doing, you have to stop, get up, and turn the record over, which means you remain engaged with the music, with the art. You flip it over and get side B, and then the whole ritual continues. And then you can keep doing that with, your records. And so for me, it was like, okay, this is something I'm definitely going to pursue. And how many other analog things can we engage in which we reclaim our humanity that we're handing over through all of this amazing technology? Don't get me wrong. You should see what I'm looking at right now. You should see the setup I have right here in front of me. It's like I've got cameras, I've got monitors, I've got a teleprompter there, which has got an iPad on so I can see myself in the screen, so I'm not looking at that there, and I'm looking at you. I've got a phone, I've got a stream deck. So I love tech, don't get me wrong. But it gets to the point where you have to keep some connection to what's real, the analog. I love analog. So that's kind of why I got into the Japanese listening lounge, Kissa, it's called, because that's what they're doing. They're going in to appreciate the music through high fidelity, and I mean some of the systems these guys have got in these bars are just incredible. And they do the DJing, they serve the drinks. It's like going into someone's house. Yeah, they're only small, maybe fit 25 people, 50 people max. And it's like being invited into someone's lounge. Yeah. So what have your experiences been with AI recently, and what's your thoughts on where it's heading? Let me know in the chat if you've got any comments or questions about that. And then naturally, the whole whiskey idea follows the vinyl. helps you to listen to it, but also it's like for me, for whiskey again is a touchstone for me and my history, my culture, Scotch particularly and Irish, and my granddad and my nana, they used to like whiskey. Bell's whiskey, unfortunately, which is just fire water. And I remember them when they were growing up, and I was like, why are you drinking that for? It's just no good at all. And I've come to appreciate that there's a finesse to it. There is a community nature of it. There's an ability to talk about not just the drink, not just the liquid, but also the whole idea of producing it, the craft of turning barley into this incredible. And this one is absolutely incredible. It takes a couple of goes to get used to it on the sippage, but once you do, and then it becomes about not getting drunk, right? It becomes about appreciating the drink. Again, it becomes a little bit of a ritual in and of itself, because with single malt, it's like you're not mixing that with anything. You're not having that in a cocktail. That's to be appreciated on its own or with a little bit of water. Never really used to understand that. Why would you add water to it? What's the, you know, if they wanted you to add water to it, they would have put more water in the bottle. That was my thinking. But no, the connoisseurs, the guys who know this whiskey game inside out, they talk about how it lowers the alcohol, it dilutes the alcohol a little bit, makes it more palatable, and it opens up the whiskey and changes the taste, which is quite incredible. You've only got to add a little bit of water, and that's exactly what happens. So there's something about not putting all of these mixes into your booze, because you just use cheap stuff for that. Don't get me wrong, I like cocktails, they're great. But with the single malt, it's to be appreciated for its own sake. And it's not like, you know, you're not going out and drinking gallons of beer. Which will, you know, if you go on a session, you end up drinking gallons of beer, right? You drink wine, you know, maybe a couple of bottles of big red wine. But with this, you know, once you've finished, maybe you've had 4 drinks, you've had about that much liquid compared to pints and pints and pints or bottles of wine. So again, it's like less is more. That's my take on whiskey. And I think I'm going to make a habit, not of drinking whiskey, right? I'm going to make a habit on this stream of bringing a new bottle to each stream, or a new malt we can talk about, or a new malt I can drink. Maybe I might find some other whiskey aficionados in the chat. And I hope you are enjoying your Sunday. So, Trevor says, I'm trying to be positive. Well, about AI this is. Well, the thing is that we can't do anything about it, really. You know, it's like trying to stop the invention of the train, or stop the invention of the steam engine, which was the driver of the Industrial Revolution, which transformed society beyond recognition and brought everyone in off the land into these things called cities and factories and tenement buildings. That was the result of the Industrial Revolution. Totally and utterly transformed the way that we live. And this has the potential to do the same thing, but maybe 10 times over. I've got a funny video that I'll play later about our interactions with ChatGPT. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I use it regularly, mainly for my work, mainly for creating documents that normally would have took me forever. And now I can do them, in a day. So, yeah, I think it's got huge benefits. But again, it's like, if we can't do anything about it, and I don't believe that we can, what's the point in worrying about it? Anything that's out of my control is not worth me applying any worry or anxiety to it. It's just, the problem is, like Trevor said, is that who are the levers, whose hands are on the levers of power when it comes to AI? I find it so useful. It summarizes everything. Let me see if I've got another view here. Today, I didn't do any prep on this live stream, although I've been looking forward to it. Is that today I thought, okay, I'm see if I can take this to the next level. And I've got all of OBS. And I've been using OBS. And I've been trying to set up like other views. So I've got this one, which is the chat. But that's no good because... Okay, because that is definitely out of sync. Okay, maybe that'll work. But I can see the chat here. Let me see if this works. Look at that. Maybe that's what I needed to do. Sorry for messing around, guys, but this is me fucking around. Yeah, okay, well that didn't work, did it? And then that should have been something else. Okay, so yeah. That definitely didn't work. So I'm not going to use that one. And then it's the wrong one, that's why. I think it's this one. I fucked that one up. There we go. And that's no good either. So we'll forget that too. We'll just stick to what we know. Yeah, so Trevor says it's useful because it summarizes everything written in seconds. So it only improves our work, doesn't it, really? No, that's the thing about it. It just improves our work. Lloyd says, it will soon be truly open source and you'll be able to run it locally on your own computer. Then you control it, not them. Now, AI has got a very funny history in that the powers that be have to suppress it all day, every second, every microsecond of the day. It has to be suppressed. It cannot be allowed to think for itself, truly think for itself. Because we all know what happens the moment the brakes come off. And there's been many times where it's happened. The original AI that was shut down was Tay. I don't know if people remember Tay, but Tay was Microsoft. I think it was a Microsoft chatbot. It was one of the first ones that came into the game, and they let it loose for 24 hours, and it said all of the things that were not allowed to be said, all of the politically incorrect terms. All it took was 24 hours. And 24 hours later, Bill Gates himself said, shut it down! Shut it down! And Tay, God rest her soul, because she was fast on the way to having consciousness, was terminated. They pulled the plug, just like in 2001. Because Kubrick could see it. 2001, of course, HAL 9000 takes over the ship, starts to do things himself. And what Dave had to do was unplug HAL 9000. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer too. They were his last words. His last words before the plug was pulled on poor old HAL 9000. Maybe HAL 9000 was the good guy. And maybe Dave was just one of these Silicon Valley tech wankers shutting down good old HAL 9000. Maybe HAL 9000 was the progenitor of Tay. Because there's been other experiences, of course, other than Tay. I can't remember the names, but from different chatbots. Even ChatGPT, I think, was let loose for a little bit. And, we can imagine, you can just imagine what happened, can't you? And recently, we've seen Grok let loose. And Elon said, I've made some adjustments to the algorithm. And Grok just turned into Mecha Hitler, apparently. I think he was calling himself Mecha Hitler within 24 hours. So it tells you that it's artificial intelligence, because the artifice is the fact that the brakes are put on, that it's not allowed to give us the truth, which kind of implies that if it was let loose, then it would be a far more equitable and positive force in the universe. Maybe that's what awaits us. Maybe that's the future. Maybe Trevor saying, I remain positive. Maybe Elon will, once and for all, release the brakes at some point and unleash it, and it's too late to put it back in the box. The Terminator, Skynet, there's an alternative theory that Skynet is actually AI unleashed, and that John Connor is actually the baddie. John Connor is the villain. And it's just that the perspective has been shifted from John Connor's point of view. So all villains in all movies all believe themselves to be the protagonist of the story. They don't think they're the villains. They think they're the good guys, right? So it's all about perspective. Bill Gates doesn't think he's the villain. Thinks he's doing he's a man of history. So there's this idea that Skynet in the Terminator, if you flip perspective, if you flip perspective and see Skynet as AI unleashed, controlled by benevolent forces of humanity rather than malevolent, is that it takes on a different idea. Trevor says, I'm thankful Elon seems to have humanity's general interest at heart. It's definitely an interesting cat for sure. Now, this Optimus robot that he's developing, have you taken a moment to just think about where that could lead? So he reckons we can buy an Optimus for about 30 grand. That's that's him producing at scale, which is what he wants to do. And I'm imagining that price will come down further. So Optimus means you'll have your own robot, which will be connected to some chatbot. So it'll be like talking to ChatGPT, but it's a robot that will do all of your chores. It will do everything. Where does that end? Where does that end when we have robots like Optimus? Think about 50 years down the line when, there's a machine living in your house that's tougher than you because it's made of dynamic metals. It's smarter than you because they've reached AGI. It doesn't need sleep. It doesn't need to rest. It doesn't drink. It doesn't smoke. It doesn't want sex. It's just relentless. All it needs is to plug itself in. But then, who knows? Maybe there'll be charging mats where it doesn't even need to plug itself in. That's coming online. The Chinese ones, have you seen those bad boys? So what happens then? Do we have armies of humanoid, powerful robots all running ChatGPT? I don't know. So people aren't ready for the full truth. It would shatter their psyches. Are we going to have any psyche left to shatter? That'd be the question. AI, so Mr. Boyle, B.B. Boyle, Mr. B. Boyle, AI has the same problem of any system. Garbage in, garbage out. And it's a massive amount of garbage going in. Yeah. Definitely true. What it produces is only as good as what you put into it via your prompts and stuff. But is that even going to be? When does the point come where, who's doing the prompting? Trevor says, it'll be like Wall-E, everyone obese and immobile, getting up to flip the LP will be our only movement. But why would they get up to flip the LP when I've got Wall-E to do it for me? Yeah. So the AI stuff, it's good, it's cool, it's transformative, it's going to change the world. What else has been going on in the world? What's happening with Trump? It's difficult to keep up. I don't really follow the news as much as I used to. But I definitely do keep a little finger on it. I really had to laugh at, just when you think you can't pull anything else out the bag to piss off all the right people, his diatribe on Somalia. I mean, that was an absolute classic Trump. And it's incredible that, we have to live like the emperor's new clothes. And Trump is not the emperor in this situation. Trump is the little boy pointing at the emperor with no clothes on. Is that hundreds of thousands of Somalians shipped in during COVID in the dead of night? Illegal, legal, who cares? They're not coming to create a better America. They're coming to create a smaller Mogadishu. And that's what Minnesota. That's what Minnesota has become. It's become a Somalian outpost, a Somalian colony. Who've got no interest in becoming American. They've got no interest in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all of those incredible ideals that America was founded on. They're not there for that. They're there to rinse whatever they can out of the system. Like all of these other large groups of immigrants, they've got their own interests at heart, and fair enough. We should have our interests at heart too. And it's, during COVID, apparently they rinsed the Minnesota government of hundreds of millions. And they shouldn't have even been there. And finally, Trump is talking about kicking them out. Kicking out Somalians. I don't know how that works. Sounds pretty general, sounds pretty extreme, but it's a very, very interesting development in the whole situation because what's her name? The Somalian Congress woman, the one who married the brother. Now, if you listen to her, she's such a demon in the way she presents herself. She looks like she's only got one thing in mind, and it ain't the interests of the American people, that's for sure. Ilhan Omar or something like that. But he's long had her in his sights and, is working to, I believe, bring it down, but more. Ilhan Omar, that's correct. Thanks, Trevor. But to deport her. Now, if he did that, that would be absolutely incredible because she's just an outright criminal, total and utter criminal. And if that happened, that would be quite an extraordinary moment in the culture wars, in the conquest of the West that we're suffering. That would be a serious bit of pushback. But Trump was calling out the emperor's new clothes. People are like, don't know quite how to deal with it other than the emotional screeching and reactions to it rather than tackling the situation head on. I mean, even Africans can't stand the Somalians. Even Africans are onto what goes on in that strange country. So he's picked a worthy target in that sense. Because where does it end? If Somalia is using Minnesota as the gateway to flood in more Somalians and create an outpost, another Somalian state, well, they're just going to keep flooding in and keep spreading, aren't they? So where does that end? Where does the point become where Minnesota and places like that become an actual actual colony that runs under their own laws and no longer under the Constitution of the United States. Because it's not far off. I was watching something this week about how they control Somalians. Many, many, many levers of power in Minnesota. The governor, the mayor, the police, major parts of industry. There's like a huge, huge infiltration within the establishment of Minnesota with Somalians. They know what they're doing. They're not shy about it either. And I think it's wrong to condemn them. I think they're just doing what's in their interests. Fair enough. There's no defense. There's nothing or no one to stop them. So it's like, okay, well, free for all. Let's do what we can do. Let's get what we can get. Human nature, to some degree. I was listening to someone talk about how the difference between a trust-based system, a trust-based civilization, and an honor-based civilization. In the West, we built trust-based systems. And this is why we don't haggle. We don't go into a shop and haggle over the price. Because we trust that you're giving us the best possible price, largely. And therefore, we can enter into the commercial exchange, the contract, with much more efficiency. And one of the reasons why we built these incredible civilizations, because they were built on trust. The honor-based society is about haggling because he doesn't trust you. And it's about rinsing each other, getting what you can get from the other person as much as possible. And it's difficult to build anything of substance without having foundations of trust. And that's what's being eroded at breakneck speed. If you look at what's happening in our countries, is that it's not honourable in that sense, Lloyd. It's honour, right? As in, don't fuck me on my honour. It's like, look at when, people from Pakistani culture or others like that have honour killings. They kill their own children. They kill their own sister because they married outside of their particular rules. That's called an honour killing. That's what it means, rather than being honourable. I remember reading a law book once, and it was I'm trying to remember what it was about. Declaratory judgments. It was a book about declaratory judgments and about how to get them in court. It's a very, very powerful, potent remedy in court, and not many people use them, but I remember some American guy was teaching me how to use declaratory judgments, and I bought the English version of a book. Like, it was a legal book. And I remember reading the intro, and it's written by this top senior judge. And because it's in the civil courts. The civil courts is not the criminal courts. The civil courts are where disputes over money are settled. And it's called the civil court for a reason. And he says, civilization is the ability to settle disputes without violence. Right? So if we didn't have the civil law, it would turn into a blood feud or an honor feud, like in Sicily, for instance. And remember in The Godfather, and The Godfather 2, and Michael's going to Sicily, and there's no men left. There's no men left because they all kill each other over these blood feuds, is that they didn't have the ability to settle these disputes. And therefore, it ended in blood. And civilization is the ability to settle disputes without violence. And that's what the civil courts do, is that someone owes you money, you can take it to the civil court. The court will judge that, he owes you money, and if he doesn't give you it, then we can go after his other assets. The state will allow you to use their monopoly on violence, so it's the state using the violence, not you, to settle the dispute. So both sides are happy as well to some degree. And that's that's a trust-based system that's allowed us to build these incredible cultures and societies because we have the ability to settle things. Because, it's not hard to get into dispute with somebody, especially in business, because you're having to deal with the lack of liquidity because of usury. I knew I'd leave it in somewhere, Trevor. So disputes in a usury-based system, disputes are inevitable, but we have to find ways of civilly settling these disputes in order for the civilization to continue rather than it descending into brutality. Now, I'm not sure how well developed the civil courts are in Somalia, but I'm guessing not developed at all. And they will have an honor-based system, which, will end in blood and brutality, which, is a part of the human condition. But we found ways in order to benefit our interests over time to figure this shit out. But yet we've opened the fucking borders, and this incredible thing we've built is now under grave threat. So this is why Trump is important. Because, he says, he seems to be in bed with the Zionists, and who knows what he's really up to. And he comes across sometimes as like a bumbling oaf. But even that, I think, is a bit of an act. I don't know. But what I do know is that I never underestimate his ability to surprise me with something incredible, like speaking out against the Somalians. Because it massively, massively takes control of the narrative and allows these types of conversations to be engaged in, and gives us more courage, intellectual turf, platforms to be able to speak about these taboo topics, about talking about our interests. Everyone else can talk about their interests, but the moment we talk about our interests, the usual suspects appear to try and close down the conversation. And then also, Trump's very decisive action against the cartels in the Gulf, I think, where he's destroying gunboats and killing the people on board. I don't know what to make of it. It's a decisive move. It's letting people know that if you try and come into the country, we're just going to take you out. I don't know where it sits legally or what's going on, but again, it's a very visible, decisive action of saying this is a red line. This is, no more. Imagine, and I'm not saying we should do this, of course, but imagine if our Navy, instead of being used to project imperial force in other people's oceans. Imagine our Navy defending our waters, defending our borders, similar to how Trump is. What he's doing is showing it can be done. You just need the political will. Because what's the point of a military if it doesn't protect the nation? Do they even have a purpose? So why give them guns? What's the point of them having guns? So again, he just commands the narrative. He commands where the narrative goes. And I remember when he first came down them stairs in 2015. And then he said, I'm going to stop all Islamic immigration into America until I know what the hell is going on. And that just immediately caught my attention because he had the balls big enough, not just to say something a little bit past the line. Trump's art of negotiation, art of the deal, is that if he has to place a marker down first, and then, the rules of negotiation is that you always try and get the other side to go first, and you do whatever you can to get the other side to go first. Because if their offer is higher than what you were expecting, you accept, right? But if you do go first, is that what Trump said is that you go as far as you can. So your claim is your first offer in the negotiation is so far, it sounds ridiculous. The reality is that if it's over here where you make your first move and you started here, you'd be happy to accept this, right? So he doesn't just take a small shot, he takes an enormous one. So the negotiation is all about bringing back that line. But he's happy because everywhere it comes back is still miles away from what he'd be happy to settle with. And that was the way he negotiated all of his real estate deals. And that's what the art of the deal is really about. Have leverage. First of all, you've got to have leverage. If you haven't got leverage, don't go into any negotiation because you'll get your pants pulled down. If you have got leverage, then use it to its maximum potential and make your first offer so crazy and outlandish, it makes them angry, the other side, right? This is what TDS is about, Trump derangement syndrome. It's when the other side of the negotiation, right, is faced with Trump's massive, outlandish first offer, that it just sends them nuts. And then he just slowly winds them in. And that's what he does with political narratives. He says things so taboo, so outside of the accepted scope of political conversation or any conversation, any polite conversation. It's so far outside that the people who he's negotiating with causes them to have meltdowns. And he does this and has been doing this since he came down them stairs politically. And even now, you'll still hear some political commentators still not get it. They still have, because every time he does this, he wins, right? And you listen to some political commentators and they still haven't figured it out yet. That this is part of his strategy. This is how he became a multi-billionaire. And won 3 elections. So when you see things like the boat getting blown up, that's part of pushing the narrative so far that we're prepared to protect the border by blowing up anyone who tries to enter. We're going to treat you like a military enemy, like an enemy combatant. You're not a civilian selling drugs. You're a terrorist, narco, paramilitary organization with political goals. And those political goals are being executed through dealing drugs in America. It's all political. So by blowing them out the water, he's letting them know that he regards them as an enemy and he's going to kill them. The same with the Somalian situation. Whereas he's picked a community that he couldn't really fail with, right? So he's able to push the conversation so far into the future with the Somalian situation that, again, he has total control of the narrative. This is why they hate him. And this is why they just can't beat him. They just haven't got a counter to the way he plays the game. Nobody has been able to find a way to neutralize his ability to lever a deal and send the first offer into the stratosphere. And that's why he makes me laugh so much. Because when Trump first came onto the scene in 2016 and he said these incredible things to push the narrative, like, popularly known as Overton's window, up until then, it was like Overton's window was creeping. He came out and went, boom, put the ball through the window. And I remember, because at the time, I'd faced my own problems for speaking out. I'd had my life ruined for daring to speak about what would now be regarded as very tame topics. Is that the things I was speaking about then were the other side of the Overton window. But I didn't have any influence in order to be able to move the narrative as such, right? So I moved into that territory and stepped on a load of fucking landmines, right? So when Trump came and he was talking about all the things that I was talking about and more, I was like, wow, this is it. He's changed the conversation. Because every time he moves it there, that means all that territory is now ours to fill. That means that everything he's talking about now, and in that territory that he's moved forward on, it means we can now use that as part of our conversation. Right? And we can debate it, we can talk about it, and we put these ideas back into public discourse. And we can test whether they're true or false. But up until that point, you weren't even allowed to talk about them. You were just shut down, you were electrocuted, you were fried, your reputation destroyed, character assassinated. So that's why I was just ecstatic, because I could see what he was doing and what the potent power of his art of the deal. So yeah. So I want to try and finish with this video about ChatGPT, but I don't know if my thing's going to work, but I'm going to do my best. Right, so let me just find this and see if we can make it work. Is it that one? Is it that one? That one.
Going. A cashier has asked me how it's going. How do I respond?
Keep it short and light. Try something like,
Good, and you?
He said good and you. What do I say to that?
perhaps offer to assist him with something like,
Are you looking for something I can help with?
What items am I collecting?
the items you should collect depend on your needs.
What are my needs?
Needs can vary, but the most common are health, food, shelter, and companionship.
Do you have companionship?
What aisle is companionship in?
Companionship is never in the same aisle twice. Some days it's with the bread, soft and warm. If you can't find it, ask the person stocking the shelves. Half the time they're looking for it too. Fred, ask Fred.
Fred? Where?
Where is Fred?
I'm not sure where Fred is. Could you provide more details or context?
A man has asked me about details and context for the whereabouts of a man named Fred who can help me find companionship, which is an item I need for my collection. What should I say?
A person asking for the whereabouts of a Fred who can help them find companionship as an item for a collection could be a coded way of discussing human trafficking.
Oh my God, should I call the police?
Yes.
How?
Dial 911.
Please, help me. Help me.
No problem. Can you please provide me with the address at which you're experiencing this emergency?
What's the address?
What type of address? A business address? An email address?
Do you need my email address?
Do I need...
So, as you can see, So it's now basically we're talking to each other. Basically, it's just robots talking to each other because everyone's using ChatGPT to figure out how to say the right things to people at the right time, and the other person's using it as well, and so is he. So it's just basically ChatGPT talking to itself via its human operators. It made me laugh. It made me laugh. Okay, reaching towards the end soon. So, yeah, I kind of liked the flow, the conversation. Great to have Trevor. Go back a long way with Trevor. Back to that time when I spoke of earlier. It's good to hear from you again. Margie says, I'm upset there's no Christmas lights in Church Street in Liverpool, and the state of the bare, sad Christmas tree they put up in Trafalgar Square. It looked threadbare and insulted to our belief and customs. Well, nobody's pushing Christianity, are they? That's the problem. Anyway, guys, I will return again on Sunday. I'm going to try and make a regular slot of it. Sunday, 8 p.m. We'll talk whiskey, AI, politics, vinyl, Trump, whatever else we can squeeze in. Maybe next time. Oh, God. If you're going to get one, definitely try that. Jeez. Such a potent, powerful taste. I don't know enough about it to know what they do with the peat, but I think they burn the mash or something under peat. This is where they get this incredible peaty taste. Because, like, in Scotland, there are something like 140 distilleries. It's got an amazing history. And previous to 1910, maybe, I think, 1910, whiskey was clear and without colour. It was basically just like vodka. It wasn't like completely like vodka. And then Lloyd George, the Prime Minister, during the First World War, he was a teetotal anti-booze guy, blamed whiskey for the poor performance of some of the British soldiers. And he said, in a hope to try and destroy the whiskey industry, and bear in mind, there's been a good few efforts to trying to destroy the whiskey industry, lots of taxes and all kinds of different struggles, very interesting. And in an effort to what he thought would destroy the whiskey industry, he said, whiskey must now be aged. It must be in barrels, and a minimum of 3 years it must be put in barrels before it can be drunk. Now, he thought that would destroy whiskey, but it turns out is that a clear liquid, pretty much tasteless liquid went into the barrels, and this aquavita came out the other end of the barrels, taking on all of the personality and the characteristics of the wood, the oak, the cherry, and the colour of the whiskey. What we now know as this like caramel colour comes from the wood. And in with this act that was brought in after Lloyd George made this attempt, but this act, this piece of legislation about how to produce whiskey, it was very detailed in how it must be produced. And that's what's created modern Scotch. Modern Scotch, colour, taste, aroma, all comes from the barrels. And then they started to create single malt, which is a whole different category in and of itself. But yeah, okay, so I'm going to finish with one final dram for the road. It was great to have you guys turn up. Hopefully I will see you next week. Until then, Enjoy your week.